Hey everyone, welcome to the Big Fitness Show, episode 34. Today we are going to talk about overconsumption as I use my 10th mic as we started the Big Fitness Show. And also, we have 16 cameras back here. So I'm definitely the person to talk to you about not overconsuming, but somebody that might be a little bit better than me as my co-host, my mentor, the draw, Big Mike Parents. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm good, buddy. It's good to call that out right at the beginning with the overconsumption because I was definitely going to give you a hard time about the microphone because it's glaringly obvious that you have a new one from last week's episode.
You and I are also tech nerds. We love
Yep.
Apple. We love everything that is really plug and play. And this is a Beacon mic, Beacon without the O in there. The software is extremely powerful. It's a USB-C mic, and they had sent it out to me because they were wrestling fans, but also at the same time, they know about my problem.
Yeah.
So they decided to be part of the problem. But I have to tell you, this here, especially with the new iPhone 15 Pro I got
Mhm.
here with the USB-C port, I can plug this mic in to here and record like what we're doing right here. And all the processing is in the microphone.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
That's
set up
cool.
all the noise gate, the suppression, the expander, all that stuff. I can plug it into anything, take the mic and use it. So
That's awesome.
does that justify it? The
Yeah, that's good
microphone?
enough for me. I'm
Yeah,
cool with
good enough for me.
that.
16 cameras. I don't know about that part, but
Hey,
we're working
whatever.
on the studio. We're trying to get this into somewhat of a, it's not an off-grid setup yet. We're
No.
trying, but today we're going to talk about overconsumption. Before we do,
Yes.
before we do, I had an idea and the CT kicked in and I forgot. I
Uh-oh.
said you were going to be excited.
Yeah, you were going
Oh
to
my
tell me
God,
about
I
something.
absolutely completely forgot. Well, episode 34 is now about CTE and post-concussion syndrome. How's that?
That's great, man. Like we can make it a full, multifaceted episode. We talk about CTE. We can talk about tech. Like do the whole deal.
Here's what I was going to say though. No, I forgot about the part about that. It's actually an example because you and I run our own brands, run our own businesses, content creation, filming, editing, producing, creating websites. You create presentations, you have calls. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Mhm.
And I've been kind of overwhelmed. We've been talking about being overwhelmed a lot
Sure.
lately. And we decided to do this episode because is it a product, a byproduct, I should say? Is it a byproduct of over consuming from different areas of our life to where I literally was like, man, Mike's gonna like be so excited when I tell him this. We literally said that 30 seconds before we started recording, and I forgot.
Yeah.
So maybe, well, what's the percentage of CTE to overconsumption? What do you think?
Sure, sure. I bet it's more CTE than overconsumption in this specific case. But when we talk about the
Well, thanks for
overconsumption,
that. I appreciate
what
it.
but like the overconsumption conversation comes up, and the reason part of the reason behind it is because I'm super guilty of that and super guilty of overconsuming things. And I just wanted to have a conversation around it because I think that it's one of those deals where we don't even realize how much we're overconsuming. And this is not just food, right? Like instantly when people think about it, it's how I consume a lot of food. And this is a fitness podcast, so like we're talking about fitness and things, but it's fitness for your whole life too. Like it's fitness in everywhere: fitness mentally, fitness physically, fitness nutritionally, fitness spiritually, all the things, right? Like, and so the overconsumption conversation comes into play and makes a big difference when you really take a step back and think about how much you overconsume on things. And the obvious one is diet and nutrition. You can overconsume food and then you feel like crap. But I think what's happening and what you're talking about with the forgetting things is we just overconsume. We have so many things going on that we have so much coming into our brains that we get distracted sometimes. Fun little story. My wife tells me all the time that I forget about her all the time. Cause like I'll have to run out to the grocery store or something and she'll ask me to pick something up for her that I wasn't on my initial list. And then as I'm walking out the door, she'll say, "Oh, grab me this too." And then because my mind is on 4 million things all the time, and when I get in the car, I'm naturally in this habit of this is my time to consume a podcast or listen to a YouTube video or something like that, I start consuming whatever it is that I'm going to listen to in that moment, or whatever comes on, picks up where I left off. And then I completely forget about what my
Mm,
wife asked me to get her.
yeah.
And then I come home and she goes, "Did you get me whatever it was?" And I'm like, "Oh no, crap." And then, so, but that is me being completely guilty of over consuming something and being completely distracted. And so that's probably when you switched your brain from, "Oh, I'm going to tell Mike this," and then we started recording and talking about all this. It's just the brain just goes all over the place.
The lesson learned is when I have it in my mind, I just need to tell you. I was trying to be
Yeah.
fancy and cute and tell you on the air. What I tell my wife to do, and it's great because I realize I do forget, is on the way, she'll usually text me a list. And
Yeah.
then I'll even say, do you need anything else? So I kind of cover it that way because I can be forgetful. But also, you and I have talked, how many weeks or even months has it been that you and I have felt, especially like we're not in a rhythm or a workflow?
Mm,
It's kind of hand in hand with, I guess we could have dedicated the episode, but I think it goes hand in hand with what's called toxic productivity. There's people
sure.
out there that, I worked 18 hours today and 20 hours and only slept 2 and this,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And for some reason that hustle and grind, which I hate those words, tend to impress people. But
Sure.
really, are you half-assing the entire 18 to 20 hours you're supposedly working? That's and with us, we've been trying to find a sweet spot of what's the rhythm you were talking about before, that journal of trying to plan out your week. And I
Sure.
tried to do that, but it's really still,
Sure.
I maybe it's because I'm still in the feeling out process between the wrestling channel, the fitness channel, doing this and other things. But it's tough. It gets very confusing. Then it's paralysis by analysis. What am I doing wrong? And it looks like you're doing everything wrong
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
you're
No,
looking at YouTube videos and listening to the podcast about how to solve your overconsumption problem.
right. Right. And it's such a thing. Like we're putting out content for people to consume, talking about overconsumption. And so I think just to call it out, like, if this is getting in the way of productivity, it's knowing what to consume, when to consume it, and not letting it get in the way. And I think sometimes, I know for me, I'm guilty of letting my consumption of things get in the way of my productivity. And so, but then also too, like, the consuming can be this feeling of productivity where you're not actually productive, like, to your point of working 16 hours a day. Well, you're just feeling and consuming that feeling of, "I'm working," but were you actually productive in that 16 hours a day, right? And so I think, to just address the elephant in the room, if this consuming this podcast or consuming any type of podcast is getting in the way of your productivity, turn it off. I know podcast people don't say that, but turn this off right now. Don't listen to it if it's getting in the way of what you need to do. If you need to be doing something else right now, shut this off, come back to it later, right? Like, it's not something that you need to I think it comes down to prioritizing the consumption that you're doing. If this is giving you a great benefit, awesome. Please listen. Please continue to listen. If you're getting benefit from this, like, comment, and subscribe, right? Like,
Mm.
please let us know. But the thing is if your consumption gets in the way of what else you have to do, then don't do it. It's like with diet, it's with content on social media, it's with knowledge, like, if that stuff is getting in the way of action, then you really need to think about, should I be consuming this right now in this moment?
Well, the two best places to do that, most of my consumption of video and audio material is during my workout and during drives.
Sure. Yep.
So, and also phone calls if you need to do calls, but really I don't even like to be distracted with calls or anything like that. But that's usually what I've been trying to do. Here's a little story. This new phone, like I talked about, the case was late. So the
Mm,
case didn't come in, and I'm not going to carry the phone around without a case. So for 2 days, almost 3 days, this thing stayed on the charger, and I only used it when I needed to maybe text my wife back or do whatever. But even then, I'm here in front of my Mac. When I
yeah.
drove places, I put the thing down and listened to podcasts on the drive, then put it away and didn't bring it into the store. In other words, my consumption of mobile content went down about 90% over 3 days.
Sure.
And I was super productive. So it always comes back, obviously, overconsumption and all the negative feelings, I think, really do stem from this device right here.
Yes.
Social media, consumption, comparison is the thief of joy, whatever you want to use, toxic productivity. Like, oh, I was researching on my phone for 2 hours. No, no, you
Yeah.
weren't. No, you
Yeah.
weren't. We
Sure.
weren't, and neither were you. So there's a whole lot of different stuff that you can, all those things lumped into one with overconsumption. You really have to be careful because you and I know, and especially I know after being sick, my energy is very limited.
Sure.
So I try to be careful on how I spend it. But at the same time, I talk to you, I text to see how many times over a past 2 to 3 weeks. What sickness is it as well, where I'm almost over consuming my own productivity, meaning that the
Mm.
more I do, the less I feel like I'm doing. What is
Yeah.
the mind F with that? What is the
Yeah.
dichotomy, the contradiction that
Yeah.
I'm being more productive, but I feel more like a failure at the same time?
Yeah. That's a weird thing. It's a weird feeling when you get into that spot where you're producing
Have you
stuff.
ever been in that spot?
Oh yeah. I mean, I get in that spot all the time where you just feel like you got so much that you've done, but then you're like, I need to do more because I didn't do enough, and it's just this feeling that just never feels like it's enough. And I think that's what leads, that same line of thinking applies in all areas. You just feel like it's not enough. And so like I'm really guilty of the knowledge piece of this, the overconsumption of knowledge, like I think there's a little bit of insecurity in me that I just don't feel like I'm uh enough from a credibility standpoint or whatever. And I think if I just continue to learn, then I'm gonna get smarter and I'm gonna have more credibility and all this kind of stuff. So then I'll overconsume on the self-development books or the business books or the marketing books or all these kinds of things that I do, thinking this is going to be the thing that unlocks something in my brain that makes me more productive. When really, if I would just stop that and take action, I'm going to be more productive. And so like the overconsumption is a thing in your brain is looking for this dopamine hit, and it all comes back to just like probably a chemical makeup in your brain that you're looking for this thing. And with social media, it's a thing too, where you're scrolling, checking for that next hit. And so you overconsume on what the social media is because you're just looking
That's
for.
what I did miss most of all when I didn't have
Yeah,
the phone on me.
sure.
I
Sure.
wasn't doing that reflex thing.
Yeah.
Didn't want
Yeah.
to.
Dude, yeah, we've talked about it before where I'll be sitting at my desk and I will literally pick up the phone and just scroll for no reason. And I don't even know why I'm picking up the phone. It's just this mental thing that's in your brain. It's like you're addicted to it, but it turns into overconsumption. And then it leads to such negative outcomes because when you overconsume content, you're not producing content or producing in other areas of your life. Maybe you're not a content producer. Okay. So fine. You need to produce at work. You need to produce for your family. You need to produce in different areas of your life. So when you spend all of your time consuming content on social media or watching Netflix, if you sit and binge 4 hours of Netflix, like you're consuming a ton of stuff, but what productivity are you getting in the world? Like, and there's a fine line and people poke holes and whatever and say, oh, well, that's my relaxed time. Okay, fine, once in a while. But if you veg out on Netflix 4 hours a day, come on now, like we got to have some kind of happy medium here. And it's just this mindset of the world that we live in. It's so easy to get things. It's so easy to get food. It's so easy to get content. It's so easy to get literally anything you want, that we as a society overconsume. And then it just becomes habit. And so now it's like, oh, I'll just keep scrolling and keep doing this or keep eating this because it feels good. And then we eat way more than we need to, way more than we should, because it's just mindless consumption of whatever it is we're consuming in that moment. And if we would take half a second and think about what it is that we're doing here and how much of it we're consuming, maybe we'd make a better choice and actually take some action on some stuff to make our life a little better instead of scrolling away, consuming a bunch of crap that we don't need.
Well, that's usually we've talked about that off camera. That's usually people having something missing from their life
Mhm.
of substance.
Yeah.
So you and I guess a lot of times that it's God, that it's faith, that
Oh, sure.
when
Yeah.
you're trying to do material A and whatever you believe or don't believe, if you're consuming, if you're on Amazon, if you're trying to buy whatever you can to give you that permanent happiness and you're not getting it, you really need to look at something much, much deeper, much, much more valuable, more substance, and more sustainable with
Sure.
that. I go the opposite way. This is where I need to sometimes sit down and watch The Dark Knight and not think about anything or
Sure.
watch a Batman movie. But what I do, and this is good to a point, but you find yourself not enjoying and over consuming business instincts. I don't know if that's a good way to put it. But when I look at anything like, hey, let's go here, I can monetize it.
Oh,
Let's
sure.
film this, I can monetize it.
Yeah.
Let's start. Yeah, I use a lot of tech. Let me do the tech channel and we can monetize it.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to be because you're trying to create multiple streams of income, but it sucks a lot of the enjoyment of just sitting back and going, hey, I just want to watch a movie. I don't have to monetize watching The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
If I could, I probably would. But
Yeah.
do you see what I mean? There's the
Yeah.
opposite way too, where everything doesn't always have to be a business transaction either.
hmm Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I walk into a place and I'm thinking about, okay, there's this much square footage here. There's this much space for people. How can we turn this into a business? What can we do money wise? Always trying to figure out uh, what the angle is. My wife and I went to a wedding this past weekend, or a reception, and we walked into the building, and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, this place is beautiful. I wonder what they rent it for. I wonder how much. I wonder how much it costs
Mm.
to do it. I wonder how many people we can fit in here. Can we fit a wrestling ring in here? You know, like it
You
was
know what?
just
I just remembered what I was going to tell you.
okay.
You want me to go sidetrack for a little bit?
Yes,
This
sidetrack
is
for just
my
a second.
insane mind that it's not overconsumption, but it's also to the point of sometimes getting a little ridiculous, but maybe not to you. The vibe board back there.
Yeah,
Remember I told you I wanted to do coaching and seminars and stuff?
yeah.
I may bring that to different wrestling schools in Florida and do in-person seminars using
Whoa,
the
that'd be
vibe board.
awesome, dude. That'd be
That's what
awesome.
I was going to tell you. So you triggered it with the wrestling ring. I remembered now. But that's
Oh, I
yeah, to
love
me
it.
it's a good thing to be that way because I'd rather someone like you or me or anybody be too ambitious with their goals and
Sure,
then kind of pull them back rather than trying to kick somebody in the ass watching Netflix for 4 hours and saying, why don't you try monetizing something?
sure.
That's there's different ways, but it is a balance that, like I said, you and I have been fighting it for weeks, if not months, of trying to find the rhythm, the workflow, the
hmm
sweet spot. Like this day is this hour is this. And there's
hmm
gonna be wild cards thrown into your life no matter what. But I think you and I have felt like the overconsumption on the business end has set us into like a wild kind of like which direction we go, and it's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. And I that approach definitely affects me a lot. And it's something that I'm trying to be more mindful of because we were talking beforehand. I'm just kind of in a stressed period of life right now. And uh, I think it's prioritizing where your consumption is so that you can focus on the things that you need to focus on and getting my guilty piece of this overconsumption is I want to help as many people as I possibly can. And so then I think I can help as many people as I possibly can. And then I end up helping way more people than I should be at the moment because I just can't help everybody as good as possible. Right. Like I can help everybody maybe 5% when if I dial back how many I help in this moment of time, I can help everybody 75% instead of the minimal that I'm giving them in the moment. And so for me, it's like, well, how many people can I help? And I'm trying to help everybody at once when if I would just chill out a little bit and help 5 people now, 5 people next week. You know what I mean? And it gets to the point where I'm just craving the feeling of almost the validation of helping people because it makes me feel good to help people. So then I want to help more people and I don't say no. And then it turns into this vicious cycle of just burnout. Right. And so then that's my biggest thing. But then I think I noticed I notice myself sometimes when it comes to social media and the overconsumption of social media and news and things like that. I'll get on Twitter and or X and just scroll and see things. And then and just to stay up to date, whatever, checking on the wrestling world, see what's going on, and I can find myself just constantly scrolling down, you have to pull down to refresh the feed. And it's like, well, I want more. I want more. I want more.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking to myself, man, why am I spending so much freaking time on X doing this right now? Like, what am I trying to get from this? And so then, and then it translates to other social media or other apps like Instagram. What am I looking for? Why am I picking this up? You know,
Or
like
being
what am,
it's social engineering. We've been socially engineered now in
yeah,
such a way. By the way, you know what you need to get off Twitter? I'm going to tell you right now. You need to create a video that makes a disparaging type of look on AEW, and then when the AEW fans send death threats, you'll be
sure.
like, Twitter's not the place for me.
Yeah, probably. I don't have enough
Actually, you
engagement on
need to
Twitter.
say something, and then Don Stevens and Tony Khan can have your Twitter
There you
account
go.
suspended as well.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's the way.
Okay.
You want to get freed up, they can help you with that.
That'll do it. That'll definitely do it. So yeah, I mean, but where I was going with that, the social media piece of it is I see friends of mine that are on social media that have expressed to me some of the stress and overwhelm that I'm feeling and some of the anxiety that I'm feeling. And I'm just like, I want to reach out to them and say it and call them out on it and be like, hey, maybe you should not spend your time on Twitter. Maybe you should not spend your time scrolling on Twitter and commenting on things. Maybe you should get off of that. And so I use that as a way to remind myself, hey, I need to stop. I need to get off of this. Right. And so like specifically on Twitter, I'll see a comment from someone who I spoke to that it's just like, oh, dude, please get off of Twitter. Please stop spending your time on this. It would make your anxiety levels so much better if you just stopped. But then I take that to myself and I'm like, oh, okay. I need to get off of here. Because as much as I want to tell him that, I need to tell myself to get off of it. And I think it's just this crazy, stupid addiction that we all have to consuming and consuming and consuming because it feels good or whatever we're looking for. But we need to be mindful of it and figure out a way to stop. If that's putting it down, deleting it off your phone, whatever it is, just put the damn phone down and stop consuming stuff. Take action and make productive choices for your life. You know, you and I talk a lot about being more self-sustaining, doing more things. I send you pictures of the canning that I do of my applesauce and stuff like that. And it's like, put the phone down, stop consuming, be productive, do things now that are productive today so that you can save yourself time in the future instead of wasting the time today. And now you're behind. And I think that's, man, I'm all over the place, but I think to go back to what we were talking about prior to the recording, part of my problem is I end up over consuming and then I feel overwhelmed and I feel stressed. And then, so the best way that I can alleviate that is put the phone down, stop consuming things. And then here's another thing. This is the Mike show today.
That's okay. I love it. I love it. This is what we haven't been getting a lot of views with being the Stevie show. So let's go with this.
Well, you do say I am the draw. So no,
you are. Let's go. Let's go.
But
Tell me.
Another thing that can be over consuming too is other people speaking into your life. You know, we've talked about how if they don't have the life that you want, you shouldn't be listening to them. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to their advice. But I sometimes get guilty of letting Joe Blow speak into my head and let that dictate what I think is best for me when I know what's best for me. And then I have other people that have no idea what I'm trying to accomplish, no idea what I'm trying to do every day, speak into my life because they're my friends, whatever. But then I give it too much credit. I give it too much validation in what they're saying when they really don't know what I want to do. Right. And so that's where, like, for you and I, our relationship works so well because we have a common background in professional wrestling. We have a common ground in fitness. We have a common ground in technology. We have a common ground in all these things. And we're trying to build our own businesses, do our own thing. And that's what has like helped our friendship blossom so much, is because we're both kind of going in the same direction. And when you say something to me, I kind of have a thought that's going to lead you in the right way. And then when I say something to you, you have a thought that leads me in the right way. And we don't overconsume on other people's opinions on what we're trying to do because they don't know what we're trying to do. And I think a lot of people get guilty, you know, for younger people, they get guilty of listening to what their parents say and what their parents want them to do, or what their girlfriend or boyfriend says, because they're trying to, you know, satisfy other people and whatever. And you just listen to all these other outside influences. And then you don't end up doing what you want because you didn't take the time to figure out what you wanted to do. And then you just, oh, well, I'm going to go listen to this person. And now I'm going to consume their content, and maybe they're the right person. And then I'm going to consume this content. And then I'm going to consume this content and think that all these things are going to get you where you want to go. But the reality is all they do is keep you where you're at because you have no fucking clue what to do. Sorry.
The Dave Ramsey, no, that's great. The Dave Ramsey analogy, if people like Dave Ramsey, he goes, why would you take financial advice off a broke person?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody's not doing what you're planning to do, why would you? I mean, it's human nature. It's human nature also on social media. And I've been guilty, and you've talked with me off camera and coached me on it. You know, you want to get feedback as a brand, but you already know what you have to do. And most comments, I swear, I hate to say this, most comments on social media are from people that aren't having any plans to do what you want to do. What they do plan to do is drag you down.
Yeah. 100%.
Nobody tries to lift people up, and that's in general, not even social media. This is not a society where people lift each other up in small circles like you and I, my wife, your wife. People that really care about you will always lift you up and also tell you when, hey, that's not a good idea. Then it has gravity.
Right.
But the people who don't know anything, they don't. What did you say? The people that are telling you this are never doing better than you.
Sure. Yeah.
They're never, and they're not living the life. More specifically, like you say, they're not living the life that you want to live. So why listen to them?
Right.
They're truly, all you can do really is just pray for them, because they truly need to find something. Because when you expel that much energy into bringing others down instead of lifting yourself up, it's a terrible existence.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's 100% true. And so, I mean, so like we've really kind of beat this home in the social media aspect of things, and the overconsumption of all the exterior forces. But to kind of talk a little bit about the nutrition and diet piece of this as well, you know, like the overconsumption of food is something that is more often than not you don't even realize you're doing, because the portion sizes have gotten so big. And so now plates have gotten so, like, just the plate that you have is so much bigger than it used to be back in the day when you were in, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, plates themselves used to be smaller, because in our world of overconsumption, we just want bigger is better, right? Like that's what everybody thinks. And so when we have food, when we go to restaurants, the portion sizes are huge because they have to feel like they're giving you value.
No, I don't know about this.
Well,
I don't know about now.
Fast food restaurants compared to... Fair enough.
Sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to
do
that. That would be the remark. Like, if you've been to the restaurant.
Fair enough. All right, maybe that's not the best example.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. That's great. A better example would be like, and I don't recommend that people eat a lot of cereal, but if you look at a box of cereal, the serving size on the back is like a cup or a half a cup. And so they give you the calorie count on a half a cup or a cup of cereal. But when was the last time you only ate a cup of cereal? Right? Like if you had a bowl of cereal, when was the last time it was only a cup?
What you just said.
Yeah.
People think a half a cup is a half a bowl. It's totally different measurement.
Right. And so like it's just the overconsumption is just built into what we do. And you look at every food product that you purchase, you just want to eat more of it. And I think it's figuring out what you can overconsume. If you want to overconsume on broccoli, by all means go ahead, right? Like that's not going to negatively affect your diet. You might be a little gassy, but it's not going to make you fat, right? But if you overconsume on all of the things that people normally overconsume on, it definitely affects your body. And over time, your body can't process the food that you're consuming. So like a bowl of cereal, your body could probably process that half a cup of cereal and not really negatively impact you in a huge way, not make you put on a ton of weight. And because our bodies can handle that in a certain amount of time. But when you eat 2 to 3 times what your body can handle in that moment, what does it do? It takes it and stores it as fat because it can't process all of that. And so then now when you overconsume all of those easy, simple carbs, simple processed foods and things like that, your body just stores it because of that crazy overconsumption that you have. And if you can dial that back, then you're probably not going to gain the weight that you're gaining. Might actually start to lose weight if you dial back the consumption of food that you're having. And it's hard. I get it. Like, there's a ton of widely available, highly processed foods for anybody to consume at any time. I mean, you walk into a gas station and think about how much stuff you can just grab. You get a candy bar, you get whatever. It's so much that it's probably not even it's so much per bar now. They've made the sizes bigger to where the fun size used to be the regular size, like it's crazy with the amount of overconsumption that we have in the world that totally keeps us fat and unhealthy and unmotivated to do things. And then it's this cyclical effect. You overconsume in your food, so then you feel like a turd. So then you sit on your couch and you scroll and you overconsume on social media, or you overconsume on Netflix. And then because you feel like you're sitting on Netflix and you're just bored out of your mind, then you go eat more. And it's just this constant overconsumption. And you got to break that cycle at some point. And if you break that cycle, get into action, maybe you can improve your life and improve the quality of life that you live every single day.
I think a good analogy between what you just said with the food, the social media, the TV, and all that stuff, all those things do not fill you up, whether fill you up physically with the food, fill you up mentally, or fulfill you in general,
Yeah.
emotionally, spiritually, whatever it might be. That's what's going on. That leads to the overconsumption. We're not saying like, hey, if you feel like having a bowl of cereal, have a bowl of cereal. The problem is if you are on a fitness journey and you're working out and you're trying to look better and do it, those are literally empty calories.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. I'd rather see somebody you want to go out and eat a whole rotisserie chicken from Sam's Club.
Yeah.
At least you're getting protein, right? You're not going
Yeah.
to be able to finish, but there's substance to it. And
Sure.
that's probably, I think, a good guideline.
Yeah.
Like after you eat food, how do you feel?
Sure.
After you eat cereal, after you eat like sugary stuff, even bread, stuff like that, you might be like, oh, I feel so bloated. But you're not really full.
Yeah.
You could probably eat again in like a half hour or whatever. And are you going to eat another bowl of cereal? Now you're
Yep.
going to be even less full and want more. It leads to one of the seven deadly sins,
Sure.
gluttony.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's just crazy. And I've been in there too, where I'm going to eat this, eat that. But once you do that, you're going to keep going down that road of cheat meal once a week, or a cheat meal once a week, then a cheat day, then a cheat meal almost every day. Then you
Yeah.
deserve it. Then you worked out hard. Then
Yep.
you're stressed from work. Then you're emotionally eating because you're stressed out that your life is falling apart. Now,
Yep.
all this stuff it just snowballs into a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But overconsumption, it's hard, man. I love food. I love Chinese buffets. I love sushi buffets. But at the same time, it doesn't functionally do anything for me. So
Sure.
I'd rather, dude, I hard boil eggs because I don't, cooking up eggs and doing whatever, but hard boiling 12, 16, 20 eggs in the Instapot at the time. Dude, if I get hungry, I just eat like two or three eggs and I can't eat a fourth. I'm
Right.
full from that. So
Sure.
that's my little story I'm sharing.
No, that's good. I mean, that's great. And I think that's a great tip for people when trying to understand how, like, so we've addressed and we've talked about overconsumption, what it is, what the negatives are, and how people fall into you can fall prey to it, right? But what can you do to try to overcome it? And I think it's exactly what you said. Does it fill you up? Do you feel full, right? Like if you consume something, do you feel full of it? Whether it's social media, whether it's food, whether it's a YouTube video, Netflix, it doesn't matter. Do you feel like, okay, that was good and that was satisfying for me, right? And so, like, if you want to sit down and you want to watch a movie, go ahead and do it and watch the movie and take that time and enjoy that time. And do you feel like you feel good afterwards? Like, does it feel like it filled that need for you? Or did you watch 8 hours of Netflix and like, oh man, I could keep going. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm just in this space where I'm just consuming. Did you eat a bowl of ice cream and now you feel good? Or do you want more? And it's just getting in that place where you're aware of what you're doing with the overconsumption and addressing, did this fill me up? Did this fill my cup? Did this fill me enough? Or is it something where I'm just kind of addicted and craving more? And I think everything that we do, we can address, are we over consuming on this? And that's a good way to start to address it. But then also, what action is this prompting, right? Like, if you're going to eat food did you eat that food as a fuel source? Is this food that I ate prompting me to go sit on the couch because I feel like a tub of lard right now because I ate so much food? Did that the action that it prompted? Or could you eat food and then go run? Right? Did you eat so much food that you can't go run? Or did you eat enough food that would fuel you for a run or a workout or running to save your kid from walking into the street? You know, those kind of things that if you ate so much food and you can't move, oh, maybe that was over consuming. And then with watching content, do you feel like you're in a good headspace now? Did that prompt you to go be successful? Did that prompt you to go take action? And I think, and that's another thing is when you're consuming stuff, what does it prompt? What's the action that comes from it? Now, you and I, we both will watch content and then implement that into our business or take action on the skill that we learned from an editing process or something like that. So if you're going to consume for that, by all means, go ahead and do it. It's just, are you just consuming for the sake of consuming? It's a fine line.
Right. Do you like Seinfeld? You ever watch Seinfeld?
No, I never watched it.
Okay. I'm not I mean, I'm like not a religious fan or anything like that, but I remember one of the famous episodes was George doing the opposite of every instinct that he had. And it
Okay.
worked out.
Sure.
It did the opposite of everything.
Yeah.
So I think if your instinct tells you to eat cereal just for a week, do the exact opposite. If you want to sit and watch Netflix, what's the opposite? Is the opposite of working out? Is the opposite trying to learn something? Using that TV instead of for that, look up a YouTube tutorial on how to build a website or whatever you want to do. When you have the instinct to do something that isn't getting you anywhere, do the exact opposite of that.
That's great.
And just let people know. Doesn't mean you can't. Like I told you, I'm on the opposite end where I need to kind of, relax and just enjoy something. And for me, that's right now NFL Red Zone. So I'm working 5 to 6 days, and you could tell I'm trying to put out a ton of content, put things in the queue. God forbid if something happens that I can't make consistent content. But Sundays from like 1 to around 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock, I'm watching Red Zone. I'm not touching a remote. I'm letting them switch the games. And but I'm still kind of looking at it like when the telestrator comes up, I'm like, oh, I can do, I can't escape it. But that's, you can reward yourself for what you enjoy, but you won't be able to enjoy it as much if it's 7 days a week, if you don't work to make that time earned. That's the way I look at it.
That's great. That's great, man. And I think those are some great tips for everybody to take away. It's great tips for us to take away and be reminded of all the time. It's just overconsumption versus action. Get into action. Stop consuming. I hear this, the line, produce more than you consume, and you'll be a asset to the world. And you're probably going to make yourself a better life if you're producing more than you consume. So,
well, that got us canceled. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, can't wait for the riots and the protests outside.
Oh, shoot. I love it. No, that's good.
They're looking for the Big Fitness Show headquarters. It's 1241 East Main Street, Stamford, Connecticut, 06902. Check it out. You can call us directly, 188-Titan. Like, ask for the 4th floor, talent relations. I still get mail sent there, by the way.
I love it.
Take us out, Mike. Now they got heat with everybody. You're now sorry about now you have your bookings canceled.
Yeah, it's all good, man. No worries. So, all right. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Big Fitness Show. If you have any questions or have any thoughts about this, shoot us an email, thebigfitnessshow@gmail.com. We'd love to answer any questions or engage in conversation to help. Our goal here is to just help. And I hope that this conversation about overconsumption was helpful. And so for this week's episode,
you can also send an email to Tony.con at AEWwrestling.com. Sorry, go ahead. I'll stop.
I love it. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Share this with somebody that you think might overconsume, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.